Good evening and welcome to the show. As always, my name is Rory and this is the Anglo-Italian pod, and I am joined by my very good friend
Adam. Hey Rory, it's been a very good weekend despite the Lineker gate that seems to be taking place across politics and football in the UK. But more importantly, mate, it seemed like you had a really good time in Bologna. How was your weekend?
Oh man, it was great. I'll tell you what, I need to actually say thanks to the missus because she decided not to go to Bologna Lazio, and I think we dodged a bullet. Even if it had been like a 6-goal thriller, I would have had to pay for dinner and be like, thank you for coming to the football. If I'd have taken her to a 0-0, I think I'd still be paying for the next 4 weekends away. But it was beautiful. Bologna was really, really great. I just cannot tell you how great the food is in that city. Like Italy, obviously the food's amazing in Italy, right? Like it is. Emilia Romagna is like, even Italians say that's where the best food's from, right? And I had like this tagliatelle al ragu, which was just unbelievable. And then I had lasagna the next day, which is basically the same thing with ragu, but it was just, honestly, the food was amazing. If you're ever going to go to Italy and do a bit of a tour, I think Bologna is definitely like on the list to do. The city is like really chill, quite small, so you can walk around it. It's a super alternative city as well. It's like one of the most left-wing cities in Italy, so that could be a warning or a welcome, depending on where you sit, I suppose. But super alternative, super chill. We did a bit of a night out as well, which for us is a bit it's a bit of a rarity these days, but we did a bit of a night out. It was nice. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend Bologna, and the weather was incredible. It was like 25 degrees or something on a Saturday, so it was crazy. I had to do the training for work, but I was desperate to get where the seminar was. I could see a bar through the window, and there's people just drinking beers in the sun, and I was like, God damn it, I just want to be out there. But it was a good weekend. It was a good weekend. How was your weekend, man? How did the sleepover go?
Oh, mate, it was delightful. Bliss at Sunday when it was waking up at 5 a.m., trying to tell them to shut the fuck up. I mean, yes, it was those kind of vibes. God. And then trying to, it was just the fact that it was so excited, basically, seeing each other and basically been doing those kind of things. And I have to reminisce about my times. I'm sure I pissed off my various parents.
Well, exactly.
In the process. So it's my due now. It's payback, I assume. But yes, it was still enjoyable. But in contrast to your weather, it's getting very cold here. I've had to reinvest in a new jacket because my jacket that I've taken to watch my little boy play football in, unfortunately, I've started to notice a few more holes, not caused by my weight or anything, just the fact that it's just developing holes, unfortunately.
Oh, God.
So it is delightful in that manner. So I've got a new coat. I am donning the Arsene Wenger style jacket now.
Nice. A big sleeping bag.
Mate, it is lush. It is lush for this weather right now. I mean, in contrast to your 25 degrees, it's more like 2 degrees, 3 degrees here. So yes,
you just need to start shouting about. You just need to start shouting about gegenpressing and stuff on the line now, and start giving tactical advice.
And try and realize how to zip up my jacket, right? Look, right.
That's it, exactly. That's it. Nice. Well, we've kind of talked about it. I think we should address it in this part of the show, really, before we get into the proper football. But it was easy to forget that football was on this weekend, as all the noise that surrounded BBC Match of the Day, Gary Lineker, etc. We kind of talked about it on Thursday. We didn't know at that point, I think, that it would escalate to the point that it did.
No.
It felt very like the world was going to end. But today, breaking news, kind of, is that Gary Lineker has said that he will be back on Match of the Day. BBC have not made him apologise. They have not made any changes to his contract. They've just said, will you come back, please? I think, thankfully, common sense has prevailed. It doesn't often nowadays, but common sense seems to have prevailed. And hopefully it'll set a bit of a, I don't know, it was a bit of a wake-up call for a lot of people, I think, especially the BBC, in terms of people being able to voice their opinions and how the government react to the people voicing their opinions. Now, again, we're not a politics podcast. I do love talking about politics, but I think it's just very good to see the government called out on their bullshit and people being able to voice their opinions without any repercussions. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, definitely agree with that sentiment. And I feel like if you can't express an opinion without being vilified, then clearly it's not really being impartial, are you? And the fact that they like to highlight the likes of, say, Alan Sugar, and he gets away with it quite often. We'll talk about Alex McNeil as well, isn't it? Andrew McNeil, even, sorry, on Politics Show. Even Jeremy Clarkson, he said some controversial things in the past, and they've
He
kind of
has. He has.
in the past. So I think it's the BBC starting to understand that actually they can't kind of dictate the way they have. It's interesting that they've got an independent panel being brought in to kind of look at their policy, shall we say. I'm sure it's going to go one way. So yeah, it'll be very interesting, but I've got no time for the BBC these days anyway. And I'm contemplating why I pay a TV license, because I don't know what I get out of it instead of like this kind of circus, I suppose. But anyway, mate, I think that's enough of that. I don't really
it's good to
dwell
see
on it too much.
No, exactly. It's good to see that chapter's kind of being closed a little bit, and we can all go back to watching Match of the Day again next weekend.
Exactly.
We do also have to very quickly talk about that Tory MP's tweet about.
Oh God, that was
this
terrible.
one had all the goals. What was it? It had all the goals, and I got out just in time for last orders in the pub. The most irritating thing about this weekend has been people who don't watch football pretending they watch football. It's really, really fucking irritating. Really irritating. Oh, did you see the footy last night? Like the Alan Partridge thing. Like, did you see the game last night? Which one? I don't know.
Go soccer, basically.
It was by far the most annoying thing this weekend. But hopefully we can just draw a line under it and it's all gone. It's all done. We actually have football to talk about. It's been a pretty big weekend. We're going to have Premier League action. We've got Arsenal. Light work down at Craven Cottage. Beautiful to see. Man City scraping the win in a 1-0 against a backs-to-the-wall job from Crystal Palace. Of course, Liverpool following up a 7-0 with a 1-0 loss. Casemiro red cards. Chelsea back in the groove. A lot to talk about in the Premier League. Serie A, Adam, what happened in Serie A?
Some crazy results started off on Friday evening where Spezia caused a bit of a shock by beating Inter Milan 2-1. Well deserved for Spezia. Napoli back to winning ways, winning 2-0 against Atalanta, albeit it did take about 60 minutes before we saw a wonder goal by Kvaratskhelia. The other highlights, obviously, Roma being Roma. No more, they demanded. Unfortunately, they got lots of goals in the process, some incredible goals in the process. And we'll be talking about one striker in particular because we've got a question that's come in for us. But also then VAR coming to the rescue this time for Juventus, I'm afraid, Rory. A very debatable call. Sampdoria scoring 2 more goals than I anticipated, shall we say. But yes, in the process. And somehow, Rory, you set the conundrum. We have to be better than the Salernitana and AC Milan match that's happening right now.
I know.
Is a real dynamic that we have to play.
We have to bring the heat. If it helps.
Before we do that, I want to call this story. I don't know. It's not necessarily a story, but I think it was a funny moment. I don't know if you've seen it, Rory. But William Vialli, who is the manager of Cosenza, he celebrated the win in style against Spal by doing a overhead volley as the ball came to him at full time. It was epic. And for those that haven't seen it, I will retweet it after the show so you can see it for yourself. But it was beautiful, Rory, beautiful. But on that note, shall we go into the football?
I think we should do it. So, guys, we are going to take a very quick break and we are going to do some Premier League action right after this. And here we are. It's time for the Premier League review. We're fighting over the button, Adam. There you go.
We are.
Premier League review. And I think we should probably start at Dorset. Should we start in Dorset as Bournemouth? Is it Dorset? I think it's Dorset.
It is Dorset, yes.
As we beat, my knowledge of English counties is terrible. As Bournemouth beat Liverpool 1-0 in the most predictable result, do you think? I don't know. I don't know how surprised I was by this. I think, obviously, Liverpool just coming off a 7-0. On Thursday, I did say, okay, I think Liverpool are getting back to where they are. But what's their problem been this year? Consistency. How did you see this game? and then I'll give my 2 cents.
Well, I was bloody annoyed with Liverpool because I put 2 of their players in my fantasy football team and it ruined me, absolutely ruined me. For that reason, I hate Liverpool now after what they did to Man United and then gave me false hope. So let alone, I don't know what their fans are going through. But to be fair, Bournemouth did have an incredible performance against them. Billing again on the score sheet. This time it wasn't within 60 seconds. It was a little bit longer. It was 30 minutes to be precise. But yeah, they seem to just shut up shop. And despite the fact that they obviously conceded a penalty, Salah's penalty miss. I mean, I don't know what you make of it, but that was an incredible miss. I didn't think he could do that kind of level of missing. But I think there's more frustration on Klopp clearly being told on him. It kind of is a bit of a worry because if you look at their run going ahead, they've got some big games. We did mention it on the last pod, but it's not going to be pretty. Obviously, Arsenal are one of those teams that have to go up to a Liverpool. They could have a say in this title race because they've also got to play Man City. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Chelsea are in that mix as well of fixtures. So, Rory, I mean, what did you make of that performance?
I thought it was really what we've seen from Liverpool, a lack of consistency, a lack of cutting edge up front. I feel like United, obviously they were fantastic, but they were accommodated by United as well, right? And I feel like this was a Bournemouth team that have just come off a great performance against Arsenal, narrowly lost, and are a bit more rigid in defence than United, or at least on that day. And I think what we saw was a Liverpool stuttering, and the second it didn't started not going their way, you could see them panicking a bit. And then I think the second Salah missed that penalty, they were like, oh, it's not our day. Now, that was a terrible penalty. I think Salah just completely lashed at it. It went wide, high and wide. Like, it was a really terrible penalty. And I just think we saw, that like Liverpool, when it's going well, or when it's going well, they can continue going well. But when it starts not going well, we see them start to panic a little bit or just run out of ideas or stutter. And I think that's what we saw. Bournemouth, incredible performance. I think Billing is having a hell of a season. Now, he's now got 6 goals and an assist for a team that do not score many goals. No. For a team that, and he's only 25 years old. I think he's a player that could definitely, if Bournemouth do go that way, he's definitely Premier League quality. I think his runs from deep, his ability to dictate play, his passing's very good. He's physically, he can compete with anyone. I think he's really, really a very good Premier League player. Bournemouth have only scored 25 goals. He's got 6 of them. And he's a central midfielder. If you know what I mean. I think it's not he's having a very good season. So I think, great to see that. I was really impressed by Ouattara as well, who was a player they brought in January, I think, from Lorient. I think that's that guy. They got him from Lorient.
Okay.
And he's been absolutely, I thought he had an incredible performance as well. Really lively on the wing, really able to cause a lot of problems. I think what we've seen from Bournemouth in the last 2 performances is against 2 of the top sides, 2 really battling, disciplined, and exciting displays. It's not like they just, I know against Arsenal, they did try to sit back, and Liverpool, they did sit back, but attacking on the break, they are able to cause problems. And I think what we're seeing is a team that are maybe just getting that little bit of fight, showing a bit of fight. The question is, are they going to then do it when they play against Everton on the last day of the season? I think it is. Or are they going to do it when they play against the teams that are around them? Because that's when you have to do it. It's kind of easier to raise your game against the big boys when you've kind of got nothing to lose. But when it's a game that people kind of think you should be winning, that's where it's a bit harder to do that. So I think that's where the real test for them is. But this is a huge win for them. I think Everton will be very happy they won this weekend, because Bournemouth could have been the biggest winners of this weekend, because not many other teams around there won. And we'll get onto the relegation battle. It is crazy tight down there. And I think we are in for a last day of the ages. This is going to be crazy. But a huge, huge win for Bournemouth. And I was happy for Gary O'Neill, because I think he obviously did such a good job as a caretaker. Came in, was struggling a little bit, and it feels like he's starting to turn it around again a little bit and just get a little bit of his own idea across. The players are buying into it. Really good to see. Liverpool, just no consistency. You don't know what's going to happen. Last week, after they beat United 7-0, I was like, oh, fuck, we've got to go to Anfield. And now I'm like, oh, okay, we've got to go to Anfield. You do not know what you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the probably frustrating bit after this kind of last few games where it seemingly felt like they were getting back to a groove. They were challenging for this top four. I even thought, after this weekend, I thought we'd expect to see Newcastle drop out of it. But they managed to get a win against Wolves, which was really important because that puts the pressure in that kind of mixture of clubs, because you've got Spurs, you've got Liverpool, you've got Newcastle now really going for it. And it'll be interesting, obviously, once these European games also go by the wayside, because Spurs are now out of the Champions League. Obviously, we've got to see what happens with Liverpool in the Champions League as well, coming up against Real Madrid. I know it's really a foregone conclusion for me anyway, personally, but you never know with this Liverpool side. They might even pull it out the bag, Rory. But yeah, just inconsistency, as you allude to.
Inconsistency, never mind. I think it was, they'll still get top four, I think. But the fact that Tottenham won is very, very annoying for them. Very annoying for them. But we are going to leave Liverpool versus Brighton. Brighton? I'm looking at the table. Liverpool versus Bournemouth there. And we're going to go on to Leandro Trossard, the first player to get 3 assists in the first half of a Premier League game. My guy, what a signing. Holy crap. This guy is just unbelievable. I could not have wished for this signing to have gone any better. Seriously. He's now got 6 assists for us, I think it is, and a goal. He should have had 2 goals because that one at Leicester I'm still a bit salty about. But he's been unbelievable for us, and I think this is a real half for him. Like Mikel Arteta had a few tricks up his sleeve. So before the game, he said that we would be without Gabriel Jesus, without Leandro Trossard, and without Kieran Tierney. All 3 did play in this game. The mind games are coming in, guys. The mind games are appearing. I think Trossard we've talked about how much he brings out of Martinelli, but I think he's been an incredible replacement for Gabriel Jesus, and Gabriel Jesus now has to fight for his place. I don't think against Palace at the weekend we just automatically pick Jesus. I think he's on the bench. And I think Trossard is able to do that job so well, of that false number 9, like the false 9, dropping back, letting the other wingers come in and cut inside, doing those little intricate plays, and his ability to play with both feet. Now, when we did the World Cup preview show with Sasha Tavolieri, the Belgian journalist, talking about Belgium, of course, he did say, and I tended to agree with him, that Trossard is the closest player to Eden Hazard since Eden Hazard. And the more I see him play, the more I tend to think about it and kind of agree. I think his ability to beat a man and his composure on the ball. Now, obviously, he's not hit the levels that Eden Hazard has quite hit yet, right? But I think he's a player in a very similar mold. And I think he's a player that could play in any team in the Premier League. I think even if Man City had him, we'd be going, oh, fucking hell, another great player that they've got. If you know what I mean? I think he plays in any team in this league. He has been incredible. And the second goal, the Martinelli goal, is a 29 pass move with every player on the pitch touching the ball, and Trossard just pitches that ball up across, just drops it perfectly in Martinelli's head. Beautiful goal. I really expected us to make it a bit more difficult with Fulham. Now, for them, and I know he's a player we've been impressed with, Adam, how big a miss do you think Palhinha was for Fulham? Because Adrian Durham's going to be fuming because we've had another slice of good luck. Palhinha was out. How big a difference do you think it made?
He's a big player. He's been a big player for them this season. Definitely, I mean, if you think prior to that signature for Fulham, he was very big for Sporting Lisbon. Real reason why Amorim was able to kind of win a title with Sporting in the first place, but also obviously that Champions League qualification as well. So he's done superbly to kind of get that kind of talent into that Fulham squad, settle down and be a really big contributor. I think it was definitely telling for me how much of an impact he has in front of that defensive line as well. Because we were talking about the credentials of like Tim Ream, for example, but they were very much exposed, I felt. And the amount of times that like Arsenal seemingly seemed to go really easy at that kind of centre line. They were being dragged. I mean, there was a number of times, I think it was Jesus almost scored a fourth at one point. I think it was around the 89th, 85th minute, something like that. And that for me just kind of showed the vulnerabilities of Fulham when one player is out. And we knew with Fulham it wasn't going to last for a whole season. They've done superbly well to get to this stage, but I think that's quite telling how one player has an impact on that squad and how much of a glue he is for the way they play. So he's a massive player to miss. Unfortunate, I suppose, for those that want Man City to win this title. But yeah, kudos. I mean, obviously Arsenal did the job. I thought Odegaard had a very good game again. You said a few weeks ago this guy could be world class. I started to sort of believe that in this match. I still want to keep myself a bit back and tie myself a bit back because I feel like I might be getting ahead of myself. But certainly the way he's demonstrating his growth, the fact that he's learning from mistakes and he's kind of making sure that he puts his impetus into games even when they're not going his way. I think it's just maturity from the guy. Is incredible. Just overall, that performance was really well. When you consider Tierney hasn't been in that squad as well, that was very interesting. I wanted to ask if you know anything about this Kivor story as well, because supposedly he was left out because of some actions that he did prior to the game itself. So it sounds like he's either had an altercation or just broken some rules. Do you know
there's not really been much said about it. It's just kind of there was an issue. I think Arsenal have got a lot better at keeping things in-house. I think, look, he had a very difficult night on Thursday. Maybe he's played less football than he expected. Maybe there's a bit of impatience there. Maybe there was a bit of a falling out. I don't know. I think any potential issue there, Arteta will be able to deal with it. I trust him. I trust his man management implicitly by this point. And I think he's a player that will play a big part at Arsenal in coming years. We've all seen how good he was at Spezia. I believe that he will be good enough. He just needs to be a little bit patient. I think he'll still get another run out against Sporting at home, and that's his chance to kind of show what he's made of. But I'm sure it was nothing. When all the teams that do well, they have arguments. That's what happens, and then it's all swept under the carpet. It's all not swept under the carpet. It's brushed off. Everyone moves on. So I don't expect much to come out of it. But talking about Ødegaard very quickly, I do want to also say there are only 2 teams in Europe's top 5 leagues that now have 3 players on 10 goals or more. They are PSG and Arsenal. So that is Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe, Ødegaard, Saka, and Martinelli. Unbelievable and now every outfield player has provided a goal. We're just waiting for Ramsdale to pitch in with one, and we've got the full 11. We'll wait until the last day of the season for that. We'll see. But I think it's just been incredible how Arteta has managed to get end product from all of these players. And seeing Jesus back, Jesus is great at everything. I think he's world class at everything except finishing. It's like the one thing where I'm like, Jesus, you need to finish that chance at the end. You need to that needs to go in the back of the net. And it's something that he's been guilty of before. And I'm so glad we've got him back. I can't wait to see him in full flow again. He makes us play such beautiful football. I absolutely love watching him play. But I do think he's only got 6 goals for us this season. And I'm thinking you could have 10 or 12 with the chances you get. Easily. I think City fans always said the same as well. That last finish is never quite there. But we're delighted to have you back.
He's someone that creates a lot more goals than necessarily he scores himself. So I think, you get in the best of both worlds with Jesus.
Exactly. And I'm honestly so happy he's back. And this is like, we're heading into this run-in now with him back. It's incredible. I didn't expect to have him. Like, I really thought we'd miss him more than we did, but it's just extra strength now off the bench. And I think I'm just so delighted. And now we've got Palace at home. We should do all right in that one. And then the kind of tougher fixtures maybe start off. We've got Leeds, Southampton, then we've got that bit of the rough run in April. So we will see, but we keep marching on. Elsewhere, Haaland penalty. Palace battle bravely, but ultimately fail. Palace haven't had a shot in target now in about 4 games of football, 5 games of football. It is grim watching there with a squad that has Eze and Olise, and I know he's not had the best start to his life in the Premier League, but even Odson Edouard, I think, is a very good player. The strength of this Palace team, I would argue, is the attacking talent. We'll talk about City, but do you think there's starting to be question marks about Vieira and his conservatism here?
The thing is, I see a lot of Crystal Palace fans currently online that kind of fight his corner. And the reason why that is taking place is because they don't feel the board have necessarily supported Vieira this season. Because there's definitely been shouts for reinforcements, but the board clearly haven't backed him. So is that a case of they're trying to be a bit more conservative on the budget front to ensure that they've got enough money for the foreseeable, shall we say? I do worry about Palace at the moment. We spoke about it on last pod. We said about the amount of points they could potentially scoop up in their fixture list going into the end of the season. I will stick with my kind of bets and say I think they will still get around 7 to 8 points before the end of this season. Is that enough? I don't know. But my big worry is, I suppose, that they haven't got really anyone that's firing at the moment. They haven't got anyone that kind of shows that. And I think you have to kind of say this game was a freebie in that sense. It wasn't going to be games potentially that they would necessarily be expected to get anything out of it. And you could see that by the way they played. I mean, although they've got the attacking players, they've largely absorbed a lot of pressure. Man City were at them. Haaland should have probably scored a lot more, in fairness, prior to that penalty shout. Grealish also unlucky a few occasions. This City side were there with intent. They were clearly there to try and make sure they scored more than one. But yeah, there is a worry with Palace, and I kind of feel for Vieira because I don't think it's fair on him. I think he gets the best out of the players he's got at his disposal. Unfortunately, it's just the kind of situation you're in is that a striker that can score you at least a minimum of 10 or 15 goals is very hard to come by. And if they do exist, you're having to pay a premium at the moment, and they're largely untested because they might be at smaller sides in, say, Ligue 1 or Bundesliga, maybe even Serie A to an extent. So I think there is a huge gamble. When you think about Scamacca and how much he cost West Ham and how much he's actually produced for them, and I feel there's different reasons for that, why he's not performing. Yeah. But, I mean, ultimately, we're talking about those kind of players. That's the kind of cost. I wonder personally, and I don't know about you, do you think Crystal Palace have that kind of money? Because it doesn't feel like they've got necessarily that amount of money.
No, I think, well, they're very much a club that's put a lot of their money into the academy. So they know where they want it, like the direction they want to go in. They want to be creating their own players, selling them on and kind of having that sustainable model, which I think is fantastic. They are like, their academy setup is incredible. They've just upgraded it. It looks amazing. And they are getting that huge pool of talent. We were talking about the pool of talent in Paris. South London has gotten all the good, exciting young English players coming through. A lot of them are from South London, and they're all getting the Palace are trying really hard to get those in. So I think that's a really great direction that they're going in. I think, they've not spent a lot of money. I don't think the owner has got billions, if you know what I mean. I think he's just a guy who loves the club with a bit of money.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think they've done well in the transfer market. You look at Joachim Anderson and Guay. These aren't bad players. These are good players. I just think they just need a little bit more quality around it. Like I said, I think Conor Gallagher, if they'd have got him, that would have been huge because I think he was such a key part of that team. I think if they'd have been able to get a deal for him, that really could have pushed them on because last season they did really, really well. And I think they just weren't able to quite replace him. The guy they brought in from France, whose name has completely slipped my mind. Decore has been really good, but he's adapted to the Premier League. If you know what I mean, it's going to take time. So I think there's still a lot of the players they brought in, I think, do have quality, which makes me wonder about, with Patrick Vieira, I think, obviously, I love him, right? Obviously. But
clearly.
I think he's not helping himself in some games. So obviously, City, if you go gung-ho against City, you're going to get slapped 6-0. I know what he's you have to try and be conservative, but I think there's other games that they've played recently where he's been conservative when they could have gone for it a bit more, and you could have kind of utilized that talent a little bit more. So I think he's maybe caught between two stools of being like, because they're kind of on the fringes of the relegation battle.
Yeah, exactly.
He's caught between the thing of like, okay, do we just take a point and be like, okay, right, we've got a point, that's fine. Or do we kind of act like we're not in trouble and just try and go for games? I think he's kind of caught between those two things, but they are getting sucked into it, and they've now lost 4 in a row, I think 3 in a row, and drawn. They've lost the last 2, drawn the 3 before that. Like, they've not won in a very, very long time. So I think it's key for him to try and get just something now. I'm just going to check who their next game is against. They do have, I don't think it gets any easier for them, Brighton away.
No.
Then they've got Arsenal away, Leicester at home. Like, the fixtures don't. Leicester and Leeds,
we said it, didn't we?
Southampton. Yeah, they kind of got a few games just after Brighton and Arsenal where maybe you could think we can get something. But yeah, they need to pull something out because it is crazy tight down there. But we're going to leave. Anything else to say? City. Oh, I do also think City. Is there a reason to worry about them being so wasteful in front of goal? I feel like this and the Forest game, and they're missing a lot of chances.
Yeah, I've seen this kind of analogy that they need to get rid of Haaland at the moment because they're obviously playing to Haaland, not used to a striker, but actually when you take him out, they struggle to score themselves. Like this is the thing, it's been noticeable when Haaland was off that they couldn't score without him as well. So I don't necessarily believe that's the right analogy or right way they should play. I think Pep's just managing it at the moment. I think he's trying to get the best blend, but the whole Julio Alvarez situation where he seemed to be a bit disgruntled potentially, I think that didn't help matters. And I do feel that, if Man City are able to strengthen in the next window, then they probably will do. They need to potentially strengthen up, certainly just to be a bit more consistent with the whole team, because defensively they haven't been necessarily their usual selves. I feel left back is always an issue. They might as well just try Grealish at left back just to see what will happen. Just to see what happens. But yeah, I just feel like the balance of play, there seems to be just something not right in that sense. But I wouldn't be worried. I think, if anything, it's good that you're creating chances because some teams crave that a team actually creates chances, a la Southampton, etc. Yeah. They want to make sure that they're trying to create chances to score. So I'm not necessarily worried. I wouldn't be worried if I was a City fan. I'd just be frustrated that you're not finishing more chances potentially. That's all you could say. But it will click. And when that does click, that's a really fearsome Man City side.
They are creating a lot of chances. Yeah, I think you're right. The issue is when you're not creating chances, right? That is when the issues start. Nice. We're going to move on from City and we're going to go to the other side of Manchester where red card Zamiro gets sent off again. And this is a message to Adrian Durham, you gammon-faced melt. Arsenal aren't the only team that didn't have to play against Casemiro. Nobody has to play against Casemiro because the guy's always suspended. We're going to go through his last 10 games. Now, I bookmarked this tweet because his last 10 Premier League games are absolutely hilarious. Now, let me find it. I'm gutted Andy isn't here now. But so it's suspended, sent off. Suspended, lost 7-0, sent off, suspended. He has the only Premier League game he's played in recently has been the 7-0 loss. And this is now, a lot of people have been talking about how at Real Madrid, he only got 2 red cards in his entire time there, I think.
Yeah, which is baffling in itself, to be fair, because he should have been sent off a lot more. But yeah.
Yes, yeah, it is baffling. But do you think, now I saw a lot of United fans very angry about this red card. I don't get why. It seemed a pretty nailed on red card to me. Goes in with a high foot. I know he touches the ball first, but he does go in with a high foot and carry on through to the player. I think if that's against United, they're calling for a red card. I can't see any issue there. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that trailing leg and I thought, well, that's a red card, regardless of whether you feel it's not. It's a red card. I can see the argument because there is a different clip from a different angle that kind of shows that he's just trying to prevent himself from sliding, which, okay, momentum does take him. I think there was a really random incident with Adnan Januzaj, if you remember him. Okay. He was in a very similar situation where his trailing leg brings down a player in the box and he concedes a penalty and is sent off. And that looks less contentious because Januzaj is literally just stumbling forward. Unfortunately, he's just trailing leg, just happens to be in a position where it's not desirable. But yeah, Casemiro he unfortunately, he's not controlled. That's the biggest problem. He's never controlled with his actions, and that's ultimately why he's going to get red cards. And he will continue to do that until he kind of gets to a point where he's not doing these stupid, like, tackle slides. I mean, this is the problem with him. There's always going to be that risk with him because of the way he plays the game. I think he will soon learn. And look, remember the guys like Vieira and Roy Keane, they used to do that religiously and get sent off and be suspended. And until they controlled themselves, that's when you started to see them a bit more consistently, and they played a lot more in the season for their teams. Casemiro will just have to adapt and learn how to play his game in the Premier League. Unfortunately, we are a bit like that in the Premier League, where every foul is going to be a little bit more contentious, and it doesn't help with his temperament sometimes as well. Because do you remember that one against, I can't remember, Palace, was it, where he obviously strangled
round the neck?
Round the neck. He gets himself into this bother. So sometimes it's not even him when he's tackling, it's him when he's being an arse. So unfortunately, that's always going to be an issue with Casemiro. But just as a word, I thought Southampton did really well in this match. They were unlucky in the second half. I think De Gea and Wan-Bissaka kept them in the match numerous times, despite, I think it was the first half where largely it seemed like Man United were in control. The second half, they were definitely hanging on, especially when Casemiro got sent off. Yeah,
I think Southampton, obviously you're against 10 men, so you'd expect them to kind of be more of the protagonists of the game, but I was really impressed. Exactly. I thought they played very well. They probably deserved to win the game overall. I was really impressed with Gavin Bazunu still, not just because he's Ireland's number one, but because I thought he made some good saves as well. United obviously still had created some good chances. And that Southampton team have got some really good players. Lavia in midfield as well is a beautiful player to watch. A very good performance from them. They will be gutted they didn't get that goal. James Ward-Prowse's free kick was about as close as you could get, I think. It's the first time I've seen a knee slide for a goal not going in. He knee slid it was quite funny. But unlucky Southampton. But I think it's interesting with Casemiro because I think he's being asked to do more. I think he's at Real Madrid. He didn't have to do everything in midfield. And for now, at the moment, he has to do everything at United. He has to do all the defensive work and get the ball out of midfield. And I think he's being asked to fight too many fires. He's an incredible player, obviously, but he needs someone
beside him, doesn't he?
Because he's having to throw himself all over the place because if he doesn't do it, nobody else does. And I think what you're ultimately doing is just, you're missing him for more games now. The big thing is he's going to be missing the FA Cup game against Fulham, which I think now makes that, I think Fulham harder. Could go through that game now. The Europa League, obviously, he'll still be able to play, but they're 4-1 up anyway. I don't know if you're going to play. You're going to play him now.
You're going to have to play him just to rest the other players, I feel.
But I think it's kind of, and the 3 games United have got now just coming up, I think he could be pretty key in all of them. They've got coming up, they've now got Fulham at home in the FA Cup. Then they've got Newcastle away, Brentford at home, and Everton at home. Now, apart from Everton at home, I think Newcastle away and Brentford at home could be tricky games without Casemiro. So I think he's out for 3 games. That could mean that all of a sudden, now obviously United are going to finish top 4, right? But it could lead to them fighting for third spot, if you know what I mean. So I think it's 3 big games that he's missing there, and it will be. If you're a United fan, you'd be really fucking annoyed, I think. There was also a very little shout. Again, I wasn't convinced by it for a penalty on Rashford. I thought Rashford was absolutely looking for that, right?
Yeah, that was clear that Rashford was diving there. I was a bit gutted that Rashford decided to dive. Yeah. There was no need for it, to be honest. So from that point of view, I think he lost a few points there. But certainly from an Olympic point of view, it wasn't a bad dive, really, to be fair. But just not enough for a penalty. 5.5.
Give it a 5.5. We'll give it a 5.5. Better luck next time, Marcus. We're going to move on from Old Trafford. I did enjoy watching that game, I'll be honest, or watching the highlights. And McNeil in a minute, absolute banger of a goal. That's what he's capable of once in a blue moon. But it was a beautiful hit. No toffees crowded in at the mental health hub outside at half time, I think. Maybe just to calm the nerves, not to, talk them off a cliff edge. But I think as a Brentford team, the last thing you want is to concede in the first minute and then be 1-0 down to a Dyche team, right? It's like the last thing you want. But huge win for Everton, right? Absolutely huge. Again, in a weekend where not many teams around them won, this could be massive. What did you think of Everton's performance? Who stood out for you?
Well, I don't know about necessarily who stood out because I thought it was quite a collective performance. I thought they played all quite well in their respective roles. And as you allude to, it's very difficult once you are one behind how you're going to break that team, especially with the now sort of Thomas Franks even. But yeah, I thought they were quite compact in that middle of the park, didn't let much in terms of like attacking flow for Brentford. They did score a second, although it was adjudged to be handball on this occasion, so unlucky there. But yeah, McNeil, I think, was the star in this game. Again, he's kind of showing that promise that we knew he had at Burnley, just wasn't able to flourish necessarily. He's back with Sean Dyche, that may have just seen that he's got a bit more freedom. It allows him to kind of do those kind of things. And I think that's really pivotal for his career as well, because I think there was a lot of doubts at the beginning of the season, whether he's just a one-man kind of trek pony in that sense, in that like he's not really delivering as much as a lot of people kind of looks. And when you think about the amount of money they spent on him as well, especially given Burnley's financial issues recently as well, that's been brought to light as well. Yeah, I think it's a good performance. I didn't anticipate this to be the way of Everton. We both said, I think, Brentford would win this. So they've proved us wrong, and it shows never believe the Anglo-Italian podcast when it comes to predictions. Definitely do not believe us.
Always take it with a big old pinch of salt. But I do also want to very quickly say, I think it's very good. It's very interesting that Dyche is getting a tune out of the two ex-Burnley players. So like McNeil starting to feel revitalized a little bit. And Tarkowski did an incredible job against Tony. I think really kept him very quiet. Tarkowski obviously scored the win against Arsenal as well. Scored another goal, I think. He's got two now, maybe. And I feel like Dyche is really getting like those. We've interviewed managers in the past where they've talked about, you know, having players that you've worked with before is such a big thing because they know what you expect. They can tell everyone else and they can thrive under you. And that's what we're seeing at Everton now. I think those are two really key players for them. But playing 4-5-1 at home kind of says everything. I think I was looking at the formation. I'm bloody hell, Sean. But yeah, it was definitely the second he scored that first one. He was like, right, guys, you know the drill. No more goals. But yeah, huge win for Everton. In the relegation picture, before we do a very quick roundup of the other games in the Premier League, now all the way down from 20th up to 12th are split by 5 points. It is incredible how tight this relegation battle is going to be. On Thursday, we're going to look at it a bit more in depth in terms of who plays who and kind of get, maybe we'll do a game-by-game prediction, see who we think goes down. But it is crazy tight down there. And any of those teams now, like, it feels like goal difference is going to be absolutely huge. Like, every goal is going to count for all of these teams now. Every draw is going to be massive. Like, it is going to be by the finest of margins, I think, of who goes down. We could even get head-to-heads. Like, when you've got 18th up to like 18th, 17th, and 16th all on the same points. It's just madness. Absolute madness. If I was Bournemouth, I'd be worried about like goal difference though. And Forest, bloody hell, minus 26 goal difference. Everyone else is kind of on like, 10, 11, 18. I know. Maybe. 26 is a big one, isn't it? Minus 26, bloody hell. But elsewhere in the Premier League, very quickly, just wanted to give a shout out to, let me get the results back. Bamford scoring an absolute banger. In a 2-2 draw against Brighton. Leeds looking a lot better, I think, against Brighton. A bit of battle there, right?
I think so. Xavi Garcia is definitely getting a bit more out of this squad, I think. A bit more tactical now, so I would call it, because at one point it seemed like Brighton were going to run away with this. But yeah, I think he's starting to calm it down a bit, get like kind of a few results on the go. I appreciate this was only a draw, but that's enough in this kind of conditions. Like against a team like Brighton that have been doing superbly well so far in this kind of half of the season, I think that's a very good point against them. So yes, very good result by Leeds. And I can feel like they're going to build on that. I appreciate they're still in the relegation zone, but as you alluded to, there's only a couple of points in it. It can go either way each game week.
Exactly. I do also have to say Jack Harrison's goal's an absolute banger as well. Leeds just scoring two beautiful goals.
That Alexis McAllister, well.
Alexis McAllister with his 9th goal of the season. Unbelievable season he's having. Leicester 1, Chelsea 3. Wout Faes getting sent off in the 87th minute. Patson Daka scoring an unbelievable goal here.
That was a good goal.
The goal of the game, I was tied between Kai Havertz and Mateo Kovacic. Now, Havertz is a beautiful little chip, right? Cheeky little dink over the keeper.
Yeah.
But Kovacic's bicycle kick outside of the foot finish, I really enjoyed it. I think that was my favourite.
Yeah, definitely. I also like Chilwell's just for silencing the Leicester City crowd that clearly were going to give him jip just because he's an ex-Leicester City player. But I think he craves that half time. You could tell he's the kind of player that loves the attention when it comes to those games, right? So
it feels like this isn't the first time he scored against Leicester as well. I'm pretty sure. When he scored, I was like, I'm pretty sure he scores against them every time he plays them. But I didn't have time to research that fact. So let's say he does. Tottenham beat Forest 3-1. They had their best first half of the season as they scored 2 goals. Harry Kane 19th, and of course the penalty that Harry Kane also gets. Son Heung-min getting the 3rd, and Joe Worrell with 1 at the end. Forest just away. They're just absolute toilet. Elsewhere, West Ham 1, Ollie Watkins 1. Emery is getting a hell of performances out of Ollie Watkins. It feels like he's really kicked on since Unai took over, right?
I feel like he's given him a bit more of a direction since he shipped off Ings, for example. Clearly saw that wasn't working out right. So, and in a talent like Watkins, I actually feel he flourishes best when he hasn't got anyone around him as such. Like he doesn't need to be forced into a partnership. He actually works better when there's attacking supply, someone that's able to kind of give him something to work on. And he's clearly showing that worth. That's the reason why I've had him in my fantasy football team for such a long time. I've been like kind of looking, do I get rid of him? No, I think he'll score in that game. And constantly every week I'm evaluating whether I keep him. And for that reason, he stays in it because he's developing and he's showing these kind of performances. The only thing I think Emery has to work on is that defense, which he can't seem to really yet work
Sounds
out.
familiar. Yeah, sounds fucking familiar. It sounds really bloody familiar. No, I think he's got Ollie Watkins doing in that just free role in the front three, and he's able to bring in Buendia and Leon Bailey, and he's able to just bring everyone else in. I think he's really like his build-up play is really impressive. I think all round he's a very, very good player, Ollie Watkins. I think he kind of went missing a little bit under Gerrard and. Well, many players did, but it's good to see him it's good to see him get back to his best. I'm really, really delighted. Hopefully he could be rewarded with an England call-up. You never know. And then the last game we need to talk about, we've talked about that one. Newcastle 2, Wolves 1. Almiron scores to get the winner. And Nick Pope, should he have been sent off? It looked like a bit of a mad one, that.
I think so. Yeah. Unfortunately, he just got the virtue of, I think, the VAR assistant maybe not buying it, potentially. I think he sees the Wolves player going a bit too easily down. And I think if that's someone else, potentially not making it look as so much as a dive as that Wolves player did, then I think there's an opportunity. I did feel the game was a bit boring at times, it has to be said. Wolves did play quite well. Second half was much better game than the first half, for sure. But otherwise, generally, it was one of those that Newcastle seemed comfortable. Isak, for example, that goal, well taken. But there was a moment before that where Wolves goes the other end, and I think they have a better chance if they convert that. Could be a different story. Lopetegui probably a bit gutted that he didn't get a point, especially after that Trippier kind of assist as well. But these things happen. I think Wolves will be safe still by the end of the season.
Yeah, and they'll be a much better side next year, I think. Midweek, we do have on Wednesday night, we've got Southampton taking on Brentford, and we've got Brighton taking on Palace in the rivalry, not a derby. So 2 kind of interesting games midweek.
Yeah,
and 2 massive games for Southampton and Palace. Ruddy hell. But we are going to leave the Premier League there for now, I think, and we're going to go continental side as we head over to Serie A. I'm pretty excited to talk Serie A this weekend.
I cannot wait.
Honestly, it was incredible. Roma, what have you done? God damn it. We will see you on the other side. Ciao, benvenuti. Welcome to the Serie A review. And there is only one stadium place that we can start in. And now Sassuolo have scored 5 at the San Siro against Milan and 4 against Roma. Sassuolo, what are you? How are they doing this? It was incredible, right?
Yeah, the Nero Verdi had another incredible result here. And I don't really know how you describe this match, because it was a series of mistakes, but also Sassuolo deserved this. But also Roma bring themselves superbly back into this match, despite having a player sent off in typical Mourinho fashion. It never goes straight forward. And then an interesting introduction in terms of a sub, which I'll talk about later. But I mean, Lauriente, we have to talk about as well, because we have got a question that's come in for us. But before we do that, I mean, like, this guy is superb. The amount of money they spent on him, and when you think about, they sold Hamed Traore to Bournemouth, bought this guy in, and he's just gone in there with no issues, adapted really quickly. And in typical Sassuolo fashion, he's the next big thing to potentially leave the club. But you still got the likes of Berardi still doing it, for example, Fratese, for example. They've got an incredible squad, Rory. I don't know what you describe this Roma performance, but it feels like, after that kind of momentum where they'd gone 5 games without conceding a goal, they just didn't turn up for this one. And it was a bit lackluster, I think, at times. What did you make of the performance by Roma first?
I thought it was very, very disorganized from a defense that we've seen. Again, you've said didn't concede a goal at Stadio Olimpico for 4 or 5 games, right? Won all those, obviously. And I think it was just a lot of the goals. It was just very slow to react. I think Sassuolo have got this really good, and they last had it with Raspadori, Berardi, and Scamacca, where you'd get the really short, intricate, quick passes. Oh, hitting the microphone. Short, intricate, quick passes in, like, around and in and around the box. And I feel like they had that back again, and Roma were just really slow to react. All the defenders kind of felt like they were watching it and just kind of on their heels a little bit, especially I want to say the second goal in particular. I think it was, I was watching, I was like, someone move, and just no one moved. I think it was, maybe we're seeing Sassuolo in full flow, and it's quite a lot to handle when they're in full flow. I think it's really great to see, because Dionisi, I think they didn't have a great start to the season. It looked like they were going to get dragged into the relegation battle, but hey, winning away at Milan and away at Roma is 2 huge results, and scoring so many goals while you're at it. And Roma definitely didn't help themselves. Like, the Kumbula red card was just idiotic. I also think there's an argument for Berardi getting sent off if Kumbula gets sent off, because he does kick out at him as well. So I think Roma fans can rightfully be a little bit annoyed, but the bigger issue wasn't that red card. They were already losing at that point, I'm pretty sure.
Exactly.
So I think it's more about just, that maybe with this Roma squad, they get a big result. They start to hit a bit of form. They take the foot off the gas, and then this happens. But I think most of the credit has to go, if not all the credit, has to go to Sassuolo, because they just made it like that stadium is an intimidating place to go to. It's sold out. They've been in good form, and you've turned up and just go, no, we're going to play the football we're going to play. Lauriente is, every time he scores, it's so annoying now, because one of my mates on Fantacalcio, I wanted to buy Chiesa off him, right? I wanted to buy Chiesa off him. I was like, how much would I have to give you for Chiesa? And he was like, mate, there's no one else I want. He was like, why don't you just get Lauriente? The guy looks class. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't get him. And now I really wish I'd got him because Osimhen has stopped scoring. I'm like, shit. But so every time he scores, it's really a little bit annoying. But unbelievable player, 10 million from Lorient. And it looks like they're going to flip him in 6 months. They'll double, triple the money they paid for him. Unbelievable. And I think he's just so composed in front of goal. Really beautiful finishes. His dribbling, his close control, what a player. Just absolutely beautiful to watch.
Even that assist for Pinamonti as well. Just that intricate pass through, and Pinamonti just dinks it over Patrizio as well.
He's a very good striker, Pinamonti, as well. He's a striker that people have been... They've been excited about for a while. I think he's the guy that came from Inter, right? Had a few years down in Serie B.
Spent last season at Empoli, for example, scoring a few goals down there. And I think there was kind of that feeling that he wasn't kind of Inter standard, shall we say, not that kind of...
we'll get onto that.
I mean, look, Correa is not brilliant, but I think there was a little bit more into the Pinamonti move. Apparently, something about a player sleeping with his ex-partner, something along those lines. So I think there was always some drama, right, at Inter. But yeah, it was incredible. Lauriente, I just feel like he's just the next thing that could easily fit in someone like an Inter or an AC.
Imagine Inter had him up front. He's like almost exactly what they need. It's insane.
This is it.
It's insane. I think Sassuolo.
I'm going to just introduce that question from Niccolo Luperini, who says, "Does Lauriente deserve a transfer to a top Italian club or potentially elsewhere in Europe?" He's suggested as well. On this form alone, definitely. I could see him doing a job in the Premier League, let alone Italian clubs. I think the worry is, would Italian clubs have the money and the funds to really do it? I think that's the issue.
The only club that you're looking at is, well, I don't know, not even Juve, is it? I don't know who's got the money. If
Napoli were to sell Osimhen, then he could really fill in for that, for example. But apart from that, Inter would be a really good suit for him, but I don't know. I get this feeling he's probably not going to go there because they've got a lot of issues with funds at the moment. They can't even get a team together. That's the problem.
No, well, Zhang is in court in Hong Kong 3 times this month or something. I think I read online today. They've got a lot of issues going on, hasn't he? Yeah, but I do think Lauriente, I think Sassuolo fans will be hoping to hold on for him a little bit longer. And I think we might see him start next season with Sassuolo. I think, again, if he kicks on and continues to do well for the beginning of next season, then teams will start taking a serious look at him. I think he's obviously been amazing since he come into the league, but I think he maybe needs a little bit more time. See if it's a Piontek where it's just a hot streak, or if it is like this guy's like quality, if you know what I mean. So I think maybe by next Christmas we'll see him move. There you go, Sassuolo fans. I'm giving you a little bit of hope that you can keep on a little bit longer because the guy is bloody good. I would love to see him at Inter though. I think he's almost exactly what they need. Nice. So we're going to move on from the Roma Sassuolo game, and we're going to go to. Should we go to Inter, seeing as we were talking about them so much?
Let's do Inter.
Pazza Inter sempre, as they always manage to make it more difficult than they need to, losing away to Spezia 2-1, and they didn't even deserve to win this game, right?
No, they didn't deserve to win it. Even with Dumfries winning that penalty, they did not deserve that penalty alone. But I think Uncle Sharma, fan of the pods, really summed it nicely. When you saw the team sheet, you knew Inter were going to lose this match. And then clearly, when you've got Handanovic in goal as well, I mean, I was surprised to see that old man still donning the shirt. It was so random. And I was going to say to you, as part of my summary of this particular game, that attempt to save the penalty reminded me of that meme of that robot diving. That's how
like half a minute later.
Yeah, exactly. It was
Peter Shilton in Italian 90.
But Spezia were really special. Augusto was incredible. And Zola, another striker that could clearly play elsewhere. And I was looking at his record. So he's also scored 12 goals in 22 games. He is joint third in the goal-scoring charts at the moment, just behind Lautaro and obviously Osimhen at this moment in time.
He's been injured for a long time as well.
Exactly,
he was
half
for a
a
while.
season he's not been playing, and he's still scored bloody 12 goals. And you can see what a difference he makes to that Spezia side, because we were talking a few weeks back where Spezia weren't getting results, they were losing games. Obviously, I think the big one for me was what stands out is when they lost to Napoli 3-0. And you kind of looked at the game and gone, they had chances, but there was no one to finish it. They've got Nzolo back. He looks assured. He's good. He looked knackered. I don't know if you saw it, but by the 85th minute, I think he was like literally getting cramp in his legs. He was just really trying his best, because I think he used all his energy when he celebrated that penalty against Handanovic. He went to the crowd. But Inter, lots of questions about Inzaghi. Does he stay there to the end of the season? I'm one of those. I stay on his camp and say he hasn't necessarily been blessed with a lot of funds.
It's under very difficult circumstances.
He's basically a cup manager, isn't he? He wins cups. But if you're talking about the Scudetto, that's where a lot of doubt is around him. But equally, when you're having to bring on players like Dzeko, with no offense to the guy, but he's not necessarily an advancement on the players that they've got. He's just someone that's a stopgap for 2 or 3 seasons max, and then he will retire, right? You can't expect these kind of older players to fill the gaps. I mean, there's a dilemma of Lukaku in the summer. Do they sign him? And it looks like they're probably not going to be able to afford him, let alone try and attempt to sign him.
Would you sign him after this season? There's no way I'm going anywhere near him after this season.
No, I do feel like a bit like sorry for the guy, because I feel like he's had a bad injury. Clearly, it's taken the best part of half a season to get over it. And he's starting to show a little bit of form, but he's still nowhere near the Lukaku that we know from the first season.
And the money you're going to have to pay for him. The money you're going to have to pay for it. It's like, I just think, look, Lukaku, you made a horrific error in going back to Chelsea. It's just, that is going to be the moment where you're going, why did I do your season, your career was so set. You were going to be a god in Milan. You were going to and it was such a terrible decision. But I think the problem is now, where do they go? They can't afford Lukaku, like you said, even if they wanted to get him.
Yeah.
If they did pay out for him, they've got rocks in their head. I think, it's really concerning for Inter now, because they do have to, next summer, they need a big rebuild, and they do potentially need a switching manager. They do need someone who Inzaghi has done very well to win the Coppa Italia. He's they're doing all right in Europe. We'll see how they do tomorrow night, if you know what I mean. Yeah. But I think, because they made it fucking hard work at home, but we'll see how they do tomorrow night. But I think he's not done a terrible job under very difficult circumstances. But Inter, it's really, when you look at the Serie A table in general, obviously Napoli have been incredible, right? They've been unbelievable. Yeah. But it is shocking that the gap is 18 points. It says so much about every other team. It says so much. And I think Inter have just massively kind of almost wasted this season, or this season has become a waste. And it's a shame, but I think they've got a big, big rebuild in the summer. For Spezia, we thought they were going to get dragged into it, man. We thought they were going to, be fighting for their lives. They're now 5 points ahead of Verona. I think there's still enough of a gap there for them to feel not completely safe, but, a little bit closer. They've now lost 1 in their last 5, drawn 3, and then obviously beaten Inter. It looks like they're turning it around. And as you said, Nzola being in there has made a huge difference. Do you think they can push on now?
I do. I still stand by, I think, Salernitana, the team that are currently drawing with Milan.
Currently drawing against Milan.
I don't know how they scored a goal, but yes.
Speaking of inconsistent teams at the top.
Salernitana, I feel, are going to be the team that gets dragged into it. But that said, I still think there's going to be a few more twists and turns in that kind of clash at the bottom of the table. But out of the teams that are in there, I don't know which team is consistent enough to get a run together. Obviously, I wasn't expecting Sampdoria to score 1 goal at Juventus, let alone 2. So they did themselves proud, I think. But above that, you've got Cremonese, that obviously they've been desperate to try and get a win, let alone anything else. So they managed to get that. I think they're happy, right? And as long as they finish above Sampdoria, they'll be happy. So then you're kind of looking at Hellas Verona. And I think the problem is, they're grinding out results, but for example, this weekend probably could do with making that a win as opposed to a draw. And this is probably running out of games now. So do I feel like a team like Spezia are going to stay up? Yeah, I think they've got enough quality with Dragowski as well, who put in a man of the match performance as well in this particular match. Yeah, I think they're safe. I think they're definitely safe, mate.
Good to see. And there's a lot of teams I like in Serie A. I love Serie A, but Spezia I really like because they're punching so massively above their weight.
Yeah.
It is honestly beyond Cremonese. I think they're the team that are most punching above their weight. It is insane. Love to see them in there. But we're going to move on from Pazza Inter and lovely Spezia, but we're going to go down to a game where, now listeners, if you are avid followers of our Twitter, you'll realize that I saw Juventus go 1-0 up and I switched over to Crufts because I was like, fuck this.
Yes,
I'm just
did,
going to go look at some dogs because a King was in the final. I have a King Charles, and I was like, right, I've got my team. I was shouting at the telly, trying to force the dog to watch the screen. She wasn't really getting it. Fucking idiot. But then all of a sudden, I put this tweet up, and then Adam was like, no, mate, it's 2-2. What? And all of a sudden, we had a game on our hands. Now, this was more like it from Sampdoria. 2 goals in 2.5 minutes, 3.5 minutes. It was a quick 1-2 to get themselves back in the game. Juventus showing themselves very exposed, and Vlahovic had a terrible night all round, showing visible signs of frustration. We'll get on to Vlahovic. First, we should talk about Sampdoria. Harry Winks had a really good game in midfield, I thought.
Yeah, he's had a past few games where he's been quite good, diligent in terms of his play, been trying to be a bit more attacking minded. I did kind of say on this pod that I felt he was the worst signing of the season. He might be proving me a bit wrong there. He might have been listening to the pod and gone, I'm going to show that
I'll show you guys
completely wrong given the size of him. But yeah, I mean, Sampdoria, to be fair, were kind of very unlucky prior to that Juventus goal being scored. They had 2 chances. Gabbiadini had a shot from distance. And then, unfortunately, because of how easy it is to slice through this defense, it only took a set play from a corner. And Rabiot, the man there to score. Sorry, Bremer even first instance. Bremer
in my Fanta Calcio
score goal. So yes, you're kind of thinking the worst. At that point, Rory, I was actually looking up who has got the least amount of goals to have been relegated in a Serie A season. I tried my Google. It didn't give me an answer. So I had to do the manual job of every season going through the table. So I've got some dedication for this pod. Go on.
Can I guess? Is it Foggia? I feel like Foggia had a really terrible season in Serie A, but I'm not sure.
No, believe it or not, it is closer to home for you, Rory, if that gives you a clue of this particular team.
Monza?
It was in the 69-70 season. It was Bari with 11 goals.
Really?
There's a few teams that were on 14 or 16 goals. But as a bit of trivia for you, Rory, and those potentially listening to this, do you want to guess who's the team that scored the most goals and to be relegated?
If you give us a year.
I don't know if that gives it away, but if I give you the goals total, 71.
Okay. Bloody hell. Oh, Juve when they got relegated, no?
Of course it was. Yeah, but that's such a good quiz. That's why I thought if I mention the year, you'll guess it straight away.
No, that's quality. That's quality.
But yeah, that was a really funny one. When I looked at that, I was like, they've got that wrong. No, they did. They did get relegated.
They did get relegated that year.
They did get relegated. Yeah. But yeah, back to this game. So Rabiot scores from that set play. Good cross by Miretti. And you're thinking, right, there's going to be more in this game. Vlahovic looks frustrated, even at that point, before he has the second half performance. But as we talked about, Aguiello reduced the deficits from a cross that kind of deflected, went into his path, and he superbly passed it. Perrin, and then a minute later, down the wing, Zanioli, who is on loan from Napoli, crosses in for Juric, and Juric passes it into the net. You see the Sampdoria fans loving the moment in that corner of the stadium, and that halftime whistle was delightful, Rory, because the amount of boos for that particular team, Juventus in particular, was incredible. I thought the atmosphere was very flat overall across the match.
It always is. The atmosphere is
such a strange atmosphere.
Bloody terrible. Honestly, it's. I was trying to think about because I thought the same. I was like, it's so flat. No wonder the players don't give a shit. I was trying to think of a game where the atmosphere was amazing in that stadium. I think the only one I can think of is the game where Ronaldo scored that overhead kick. Was it against? I can't remember. It was against now. Was it
Real Madrid? Wasn't it?
It was Real Madrid, wasn't it? That was the one game where I remember it being like bloody hell, the atmosphere in here is pretty popping. Like, I don't think it's not a great stadium. They can barely fill it. The atmosphere is pretty terrible. But it matches the football on the pitch, right? Because Jesus Christ, they were awful. And if Sampdoria weren't a team so low in confidence and able to ship so many goals, I think Juve lose that game. But there were a few players that impressed me before we got onto Vlahovic. I really, really was impressed by Rincon in midfield. The guy's 37 and he was absolutely running about, destroying everything. I thought by the 85th minute they took him off and he was like hobbling off. I think he'd put a proper shift in. I was well impressed by him. Harry Winks, I thought, did really well. The guy you mentioned from Napoli, Zaniolo, another exciting player that Napoli could next year be going, okay, we've got someone else to bring in. Exactly. I thought he looked really, really good. And the young midfielder they brought on. Now, the guy they replaced Rincon with, and I'm going to get his name because he's only 18, 19. Just bear me 1 second, listeners. They brought him on quite late on. His name was Malagrida, Lorenzo Malagrida. Now, he's only 19 years old. And the first thing he did, his first touch was like a back heel between two midfielders to buy himself space. And I was like, damn. This guy's not short of confidence, and technically, he looked really good. I was like, he was a player where I was like, if Sampdoria are going to be in Serie B next year, he could be a player that they kind of look at and be like, okay, here we go. There's signs of promise in that team. I honestly was really, really impressed by him. So I think could be a name to keep an eye on there. Promising youngsters, not working out, Vlahovic. What has happened there? Now, the penalty miss, you know, like when he's just one of those players that you can just tell the weight of the world is on his shoulders. And the second it bounced off the post, his head just completely went. He then missed another 2 chances. I think the one immediately after penalty, he started punching the ground and was like screaming. And after that, all I thought was Allegri get him off. Like, I know it would have been brutal. Like, I don't know, would it have been, like, do you think it would have been worse to take him off on a bad night and everyone be like, oh, he's had a shite night, he's had to take him off? Or do you think it's worse to leave him out there as these misses keep coming past? It just felt like just get him off and just let him put this night behind him. It really wasn't good to watch. Yeah,
it's not great if you come off the pitch and you can't score past Sampdoria, right? That's the problem he's got now. Is that
it must be frustrating.
He's been that poor that he couldn't score past Sampdoria, even from the penalty spot. Bless him. He did try even from a free kick, but even the free kick was terrible. He's just a player that's shot of confidence at the moment, and it doesn't help the system that he plays because that's not his natural game. I do feel there's certain games where it seemed to work well. Salernitana a few weeks back where he's won 2-0 and he seemed to have a commanding kind of finish for that game. But unfortunately on this occasion, he's just been a bit short of confidence. And I think, like you say, I think the best thing to do is just leave him out of the squad. Unfortunately, I think the problem is, in an ideal world, Allegri puts Milik into that squad. He probably doesn't put Vlahovic to start this match. You got Moses Kane, who was obviously, unfortunately, suspended after that Roma incident.
Of course.
So, he had little choice but to play him, unfortunately, on this occasion. But
I also think if you're a manager, you look at Sampdoria at home and you go, right, I'm starting this guy because he's going to score against Sampdoria. If I can't start him against Sampdoria at home, when can I start him? Right? I think this is a game where Allegri's definitely expecting him to get that chip off his shoulder or that monkey off his back, whatever phrase you want to use. But I think like it just felt like instantly I was like, just get him off because he's gone. He's completely gone. And I think what he needs now is a coach that's able to tell him that, you've got time. You're going to start every game. No matter what happens, you are going to be the striker, whether you score or not. Just take that pressure off him a bit because you can see the pressure is absolutely piled on him at the minute. But Juve do get the win, and they get it through fairly contentious circumstances. We've not even talked about it yet. The Rabiot winner, absolutely, I cannot believe this one. I watched it. I was like, oh, it's handball. It's handball. There it is. There it is. It's handball. Oh, no, they've given it. Right. What the fuck happened there? What the fuck happened
basically the VAR in the Allianz Stadium doesn't work. It hasn't been working for Juventus issues. It doesn't work on this issue. I mean, how much more blatant does it have to be?
Yeah.
It's so funny though, Rory, seeing all the Juventus fans defend it to the
Oh
hill,
yeah, wow.
kind of like they're saying that's not
They've
handball.
defended worse.
Like,
Don't worry about that.
they probably have. They probably have. But that was so obvious. It's like if that's not a hand, like someone I think it was Nima Tavali off the Italian podcast. He said, "What was he using his neck there?" Or like it's just so stupid because that was so clearly basically a handball. And unfortunately, like you, my natural reaction was we'll just get the replay. It'll be declared offside or handball, and there will just be basically a Sampdoria free kick. And even the Sampdoria players, I felt for them because at that point they were struggling. They were so struggling. They were struggling. It doesn't help when you've got Manuel or Gabbiadini up front. But yeah, I mean, this is a problem that Samp have. They just don't have the squad that can basically.
No, but you must just feel like I wouldn't be able to help myself and turn around to the referee and just like, give us a chance, mate. Come on. Like you've seen where we are. You've seen what's going on. We're away to Juventus. We're actually playing well for once. We're actually look at us, we're doing well. And now you're giving a goal that should not like what the fuck are you doing? Like you're trying to stop breaking my balls. Like it's just I could not believe it. I was just sat going, oh, okay, good. Yeah, that's handball, sweet. Okay, get a free kick. Like you said.
Yeah.
Goal to Juventus. It was a very nice finish from Rabiot. It was a very nice finish from him. He's having an incredible season. That guy plays for a contract, right? He absolutely plays for a contract. But it should never have been a goal. Juve get the win. It puts them now. They're definitely creeping up. They are only 4 points behind Atalanta, who haven't won in bloody 5
they're going to overtake them now. You can see it. They're going to overtake Atalanta at this rate. And they'll have their 15 points reinstated because they're going on this technicality issue now. So that's just bullshit, isn't it, in itself? Yeah. So it's just like, oh, here we go. The circus continues.
They're always bloody there, but... Yes, they will be in Europe. They'll get European football next year. It's pretty much certain. Milan, I think it's just finished. 1-1 at home to Salernitana. Jesus Christ. Olivier Giroud scoring in the 46th minute just before half time. Boulaye Dia, one of the very good players for Salernitana this year, gets another goal. Just while we're talking about Giroud, very quickly, did you see the video of Giroud and his older brother? Yes. It was unbelievable.
I thought it was his dad's, to be fair. It was just so funny.
I saw someone retweet it with Giroud's got a message from the version of himself from The Last of Us, which made me laugh quite a lot. They look exactly the same, except Giroud hasn't done personal grooming for a while. It's insane how similar they look. I also saw the other comment, which was, wow, his mum's jeans didn't even put up a fight, which I really enjoyed. They look exactly, it's just incredible. Really, it's a really heartfelt, beautiful video about this older brother saying how proud he is of his little brother, but it was just completely dominated by how they look exactly the same.
I'm surprised they didn't put like a Doctor Who TARDIS in the middle of the picture as well.
It was incredible. We do also need to any other games in Serie A. We need to talk about Fiorentina 2, Cremonese 0. Cabral getting another goal. He's finding his goal-scoring boots, putting in an absolute shift for Fiorentina. And Icone is a player who's also always shown a little bit of promise, but he's starting to become a bit more dangerous, a bit more of a threat consistently for Fiorentina. That is great to see. Any games you want to talk about? We want to talk Serie B as well, but any other Serie A games you want to talk about?
But Napoli, obviously back to winning ways. 2-0 here. Kvaratskhelia back. Incredible finish. That amazing little run. It was just, if there was a time and a place, that was the time and the place. Just incredible finish. And then Rachmani just to conceal it. And Atalanta, obviously, massively not really performing at the moment, Rory. Do we think this wobble continues now?
I feel like it's starting to become the wobble is getting out of control, right? As I said, they've not won in 4 now, and like they've lost 3 of them. I think that off the top of my head, they've had a fairly tough run of fixtures. They've had Milan away, Udinese at home. You have to win. Napoli away, okay, that's rough. They lost at home to Lecce, which is such a massive
fucking
loss. Before that, they lost to Lazio. No, they beat Lazio before that. Like, I don't know. I think this wobble's starting to get a bit out of control. What's good for them is now they've got 3 games that could be winnable. Empoli at home, Cremonese away, and Bologna at home. A little bit more winnable before it starts getting tough again. So this is a time for Atalanta to kind of turn it around. But it's not been pretty viewing from then. That Kvara goal was just absolutely beautiful. I just wanted to hear that, like, as the guy just slipped past him and then slipped past him again, like, like comedy noises, because he just absolutely did 2 of them twice. Beautiful finish. Great to see him back. Napoli, it was never going to last long, was it? All I want is Osimhen to start scoring again, because my lead at the top of Fanta Calcio is slipping, guys. It was 10 points, and now it's like 6. I'm like, guys, wake up, please, Napoli.
Yeah.
I need Osimhen to be waking up. But we wanted to do a little bit of Serie B. Adam, tell us, Serie B, big weekend.
Well, I was meant to kind of raise it on Thursday's show. It did slip my mind, but Bari had an incredible game against Frosinone. Frosinone, who are top of Serie B, but obviously with Bari, they are trying to gun themselves into the automatic places. They are having to fight this battle with Genoa at the moment. And going into this game, obviously, was never going to be easy. You got Fabio Grosso, who is leading Frosinone at the moment, and it was a 0-0 draw. So not a bad result for Bari by all stretch of imagination. However, Genoa did win their game against Ternana 1-0, so that puts them in prime position. It feels like it's going to be between those two to get that automatic place. However, it is spicing up even into the playoff mix as well at the moment, Rory. I mean, you've got teams like Parma in that mix at the moment. Calgary, who had a fantastic result on Friday night. They won 4-1. I'm trying to get that game, who they were playing. It was Ascoli. But yeah, you even got Palermo, who... obviously, there's a romantic feeling about Palermo, right? They're just outside of that mix as it currently stands. But obviously, on a point of view, it's going to be between them and potentially Parma and Calgary. Regina, who were doing quite well up until a point, they've slipped massively down that kind of table. They were at one point top of the table, but unfortunately, it has slipped their kind of sides. Pisa, Torello as well. They're doing quite well. So, yeah, it's quite a mix. And then, obviously, at the bottom, you got the team that I'm wearing, Rory, Brescia, bottom. Smack
right down
bottom
there
at the moment. They are going as it stands to the Serie C. But then you've got Spal, Benevento, who were bottom a few weeks ago. They're pulling themselves up. And Venezia and Perugia still in that mix alongside Cosenza. Cosenza, the team that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, got that important win against Spal and obviously pulling themselves out of that mess at the moment. But yeah, how is it in the household, Rory? Because I know there's a big Bari contingent in that house.
It's getting tense. And the thing is, because like the whole season, I've been saying to Tiz, like, look, Bari will get playoffs. They'll get playoffs. Like, even when they got promoted from Serie C, I said it. I was like, they have a chance of pushing their way straight through, because I think they've got momentum, they've got the money, they've got like the backing, everything's kind of there. I didn't expect them to be pushing for automatic spots, and they genuinely are. I think they're a team that even if they got to Serie A with a few additions, they wouldn't be a Cremonese, if you know what I mean.
No, I think they'd be slightly higher.
Yeah, I think they'd be doing all right. The big thing is, Adam, the last game of the season is Genoa versus Bari in Genoa. It's going to be absolutely massive. And already I'm thinking, Genoa's only an hour away, only 2 hours away. Get a cheeky little ticket for that one. It'd be interesting. But I think, it's getting a little bit tense. Like, basically, the missus has said she doesn't want to go to the San Siro until she can watch Bari at the San Siro. So I'm like, okay, right. The first game's going to be Bari, and we're going to go in with the Bari fans and get treated like shit for 2 hours. I can't wait. But yeah, it will be. I really hope they make it. Honestly, I really hope they make it. It would be so great to see in Serie A. And like, there's a great account that's a Bari fan that I'm going to shout out on Twitter, because I kind of retweet his stuff every so often. if you can read Italian or you've got a translate tool on your phone, he's a pretty good follow. He's a very good follow, in fact. And I'm just going to get his name. It is Gazzismo, and it's at Gazzismo, Zismo. And he retweeted a video today, just buongiorno, with a full San Nicola Stadio, and the atmosphere is just unbelievable. It looks like a spaceship that's just landed in the south of Italy.
That stadium,
it's so incongruous, but it just looks incredible. And just watching that video, I was like, I really, really want to go there for a Serie A game. It would be amazing. It would be amazing. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. But we do very quickly. We've got 5 minutes. We need to do a bit of Champions League preview. We do have Champions League this week.
We do,
and we're going to start with the Italian team. We're going to start with Inter away to Porto. Adam, how do you feel this one's going to go?
I don't know. I really don't know what to expect because Inter, obviously the form that they're in, the way they're playing at the moment, I think it could be a win for Porto as it currently stands. However, if you think about how they played in the first leg, Inter probably just about deserved it. Obviously, they just about got that 1-0 win, courtesy of Lukaku in the 80th minute. I really don't know where this game is going to go, but it's going to be a hell of a tense game. That's all I can say. There's already been a little bit of kind of piece by the social media account at Porto, kind of making out Inter fans as like pizza spinners, essentially.
So good.
Yes.
If you don't see it, it's an Italian chef falling over with a pizza, and then all the Porto players staring at him with like red eyes.
With
it's such a weird
eyes,
image. Such a weird image, but absolutely genius. Absolutely genius. No, I think you're right. I think Inter are going to make really fucking hard work of this. I really hope they get through because I want another Champions League night in San Siro, but I think Porto can nick this. Sorry, Inter fans. I really don't think it's going to go well. That is, of course, this evening, as you guys are listening, 9 o'clock kickoff in Europe. And we have Man City against Leipzig, 1-1 headed into the Etihad. Do you think Leipzig can pull off a surprise here?
No, I can't see it. I think they will give them a bit of a scare if Man City don't kind of have the same intensity as they've been displaying. But I think it's going to be straightforward if they can take the chances, which we have kind of summarized in the kind of Premier League section. They are creating chances. That's the most important thing. So let's see what happens. But I feel Man City probably have enough against this RB Leipzig side. Definitely, Rory.
I think I agree. Then on Wednesday, we have Napoli taking on Eintracht Frankfurt 2-0 to the Partenopei. Napoli kind of back in form in Serie A, back for those wins. Win. How do you see it going?
I think it's going to be an easy victory for Napoli, probably helped by the fact that there's no Frankfurt fans in the stadium as well, because that's the Italian ministry that have decided not to give the tickets to the Frankfurt fans. Admittedly, Frankfurt fans do have a bit of a reputation, shall we say. They displayed it earlier in the Champions League against Marseille, where their fans clashed. So, obviously, it was probably the decision wisely made. But, regardless, from a footballing point of view, I think because of the first leg, that really takes it out on Frankfurt. Frankfurt really have to make a game of this. I cannot see Spalletti making it too open, especially in this second leg. I think they go into half-time, and as long as they're level, then I think it's fairly straightforward. And the talent that, say, Napoli have from the bench, let alone in their first 11, they've probably got enough to see this game through. So I think Napoli are comfortable in this game.
Nice. And then the big question on everybody's lips, are Liverpool going to come back in the Bernabeu? Do you see it happening? I think if they hadn't have played Bournemouth in the meantime, I'd be going, I fancy it. But now, all of a sudden, I can't see it. What do you think?
I think what you'll see is there'll be a replay, if you remember, of what Chelsea did when they had to go into that game and score goals. If you remember rightly, they'll get pegged back immediately through Benzema and a Modric combination or something along those lines, Rodrigo or whoever it is. But you can imagine Ancelotti's going to be really calm on the sidelines, smoking his cigarette, ready for this to happen, ready to go 1-0 behind, and then they'll peg them back. Even if they go 2-0 behind, I think they're still comfortable. it is in Madrid. I think that's the only unfortunate thing. If this was at Anfield, I could maybe see Liverpool having a chance. But unfortunately, I think with the quality that Real Madrid have, they're a bit more experts when it comes to these scenarios. And they also they seem to have a good record against Liverpool. I don't know what it is, but they seemingly seem to have this impressive record where they never seem to get beaten by them. So, unfortunately, I think that's another notch in the favour of Real Madrid. How about you?
Yeah, it's a big ask, isn't it? It's a big ask. I think I can't really see it happening. I think Liverpool will put up a fight. I think you're right. They could go in the lead, but I think it will ultimately be too big an ask. We are going to very, 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 very quickly go to the Cool Kids Club as we talk about Europa League. Very quickly, Manchester United taking on Betis. That's 4-1. You'd expect United to go through that one. Yeah. Roma going away to Real Sociedad is quite an intriguing one, but I would expect the Giallorossi to get through that one. We, of course, have the Union versus Union off. And a 3-3 draw.
Quaking.
Yeah, exactly. She's getting ready again. She's getting prepared. A 3-3 draw that hopefully will be as exciting as the other one. Very quickly as well, Boniface, who got 2 in the first leg, is another very exciting Nigerian striker that you should be keeping an eye on. He's going to be in bigger leagues soon. And we have Arsenal taking on Sporting Lisbon 2-2 there. At the Emirates, hopefully Arsenal can get the job done. For Juventus, they are going away to Germany, currently 1-0 up. We've seen them struggle against Sampdoria. They'll be hoping they can get the job done in Freiburg. I think that could be the upset of the round. What do you think?
Yeah, potentially. I think Freiburg are a team that you shouldn't take lightly. They've been very good early part of the season. They were threatening to be in that kind of top 4 mix. They still have a chance to be in the Champions League places as it currently stands. Definitely a team that you shouldn't really be going in there with just a 1-0 lead, should we say. I think Juventus will be kicking themselves that they didn't score more goals in this one. And probably in typical fashion, we won't see Paul Pogba appear for this match either. So, yes, I think it's going on the cards that they will lose this game.
He did do a really interesting Instagram post today, which was him, and then Allah doesn't burden you with more challenges than you can face, was basically the thing. Right. And I appreciate the sentiment, really beautiful.
Yeah.
No, religion's important to him. What really annoyed me a little bit was that the style of the message was like the thing that iPhone comes up. It was like, an iPhone message where it like asks you for your fingerprint or whatever. It was like that kind of format. I was like,
right, okay.
I don't know. It just didn't. It felt not befitting of a religious text. I'm not a religious person. It just felt a bit weird. But anyway, beyond my feelings towards religion, we're going to go to the even cooler kids club in the Conference League, as we do have to discuss very, very quickly. The games that I'm looking at here: Başakşehir 1, Ghent 1. That's pretty close. Slovan Bratislava 2, Basel 2. But the game we're all thinking about before we get to the Italian teams, Djurgården 0, Lech Poznan 2. How are we feeling about it, Adam?
Well, there's a lot of high hopes in Poland at the moment. They feel if they can just make sure they don't concede very early on as well, they stand a chance. But I did see a bit of the highlights after our Thursday show. Maciej Skóra, who is a Polish international. He's a young kid. He did some incredible moves in this particular match. He'll be a marksman in this particular game. So I think that helps that dynamic. Clearly, Djurgårdens will probably make sure someone's man marking him at all times, which might help Poznan go through. But also Ishak, who is the Swedish striker, he's getting a bit of a rapport and reports in Sweden that they might be tempted to take him into the international side based on his performances. So, yes, there's a fantastic story there as well, because he had offers from Qatar and he declined them to stay at Lech. And he decided to print out the email and have it framed in a frame at home. So he says, one day I will go and see that. So, yes, I'd love it if they could progress. Let's see what happens, though.
Fingers crossed. The Italian contingency we have, Fiorentina going away to Turkey with a 1-0 lead. Now, that's going to be a test. We know that Turkey's a tough place to go to. That could be an intimidating one. And Lazio go away to
overturning. Yes.
If they'd have lost away, it wouldn't be too bad. But losing at home is such a shit result. They've now got to go to AZ Alkmaar. I think they go out. What do you think?
I think so, purely because I think Sarri just basically sees it as an opportunity to consolidate and focus on that top four finish for Lazio. Personally, that's what I said. I said it to Alfredo, who we had on the show a few episodes ago. But yeah, I feel that's the way he's going to play it. I can't see him taking it seriously. Even by the virtue, I don't know if you saw the little clip of him smoking on the sidelines whilst the other guys were training. That's kind of summarizes Sarri. He's got a very laissez-faire attitude to this all. So let's wait and see.
We will see. And then finally, West Ham 2, AEK Larnaca 0. Heading into that, West Ham could, despite having a pretty miserable season, could actually push quite far in this competition. I hope they do. It'll be nice to see if they can win it. I think they've genuinely got a shout if they can get a bit of a run together. So it would be good to see them go through there and continue that lovely run. Guys, we are 5 minutes over our time. Can you imagine? I apologize. We are going to say farewell right now. Farewell.
Yes.
Adam, anything to say before we go?
Just keep your eyes peeled for Wednesday. We have got a fantastic episode lined up. Just to introduce him, this guest has basically coached for the likes of Arrigo Sacchi, Fabio Capello, also Trapattoni, where he got his first bite into coaching. He's got some fascinating stories. I won't spoil it, but you definitely have to listen to it.
That is some Italian royalty you've just dropped there. Italian football in royalty. Guys, Wednesday, keep an eye on the social media. It all will be revealed. As always, thank you for joining us. Follow us on Twitter at Italian Anglopod, on Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod. Like and subscribe down here. Tell your friends. Also, give us a rating on any of your apps. Whatever app you're listening to, can you do me a favor right now? Just go on the episode thing, find where it says rating, and just put 5 stars, because why not, right? And then if you got a bit of time, just put a little bit of description, even if it's like, I don't know, calling me a dickhead. Just put a description and a rating of 5
Just
stars.
5 star. Make sure it's 5 stars.
5 stars is the key bit. But thank you for joining us, guys. We will see you on Friday morning. We'll see you on Wednesday, then Friday morning.
Yes.
Such a smooth ending. Bye, guys.
Bye.